another video from City Self-Sufficiency. Today we're going to be looking at how you can dry mealworms in an oven at home. Now, you might be wondering, why would you want to go to the bother of drying out mealworms when they're so easy to breed? And it's mostly just ease of storage. The biggest difficulty that you have with mealworms is that you can't control their growth phase. They're going to grow up, become pupa, become beetles, lay eggs, die. There's nothing you can do about that. But obviously, ideally, you want to be storing them at this stage. This is the stage that they're most useful, when they're a fully grown grub that's not quite pupating yet, and it's got sort of the maximum amount of nutrients that it's able to hold. And so what you're doing is, by drying them out, you're essentially fixing them in the sort of most useful form that you can, so that you'll always have access to them without needing to go and sort of pick more out of a tub or dry any more out. You'll always have a ready supply, so long as you keep your plastic tub topped up. And drying them is really simple. It doesn't take any sort of extra effort at all, as long as you've got a tray to put them on and an oven. But the first thing you need to do is pick out the right ones to dry in the first place. And here we have a fine batch of potentials. As you can see, they are all full grown. None of them are too small, none of them are immature in any way, none of them are shedding their skin or anything like that. They're all as big and as fat as they're going to get before they start looking at pupating. And so they're at an ideal stage now for them to be stored, ready for use later on. The first thing we need to do with them, though, is we need to kill them, sadly. And here I have one Easy Seal airtight tub for that exact purpose. What we're going to be doing is, if we add the little bugs into there, sorry guys, here you go. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop them into the freezer. By putting them into the freezer, you're killing them before they have to go through the process of being dried, which I imagine isn't going to be very pleasant for anything. By putting them into the freezer, what they'll do is they'll go into a torpid state. So they'll be effectively, they cool down to the stage where they go to sleep, and then they cool down even further until they freeze. It's the most humane way that you can kill them. It's going to take around half an hour to an hour. With that amount, because I'm only doing a little batch this time, I won't leave them for any more than an hour. They don't need longer than that. They'll freeze solid in that time. But I'll pop them in the freezer and we'll come back to them in just a second. And here we are. It's been about an hour now. So I need to start thinking about getting these guys dried out in the oven. For that, I'm going to need a little tray. As you can see, this is a pretty old battered tray that I've got, which I use for cooking up small batches. And I'm just going to line that with some tin foil, just to give it some protection. I mean, I'm not going to use that for anything else now. It's a bit of a mess. But still, it's worth sort of using this, because they can be a little bit sticky as they cook. Mealworms do lose their fluid, obviously. That's the whole point. It's got to go somewhere, and quite a lot of it will go onto this. So I'll just quickly line this one up. Here we go, one lined tray, all ready to go. And here are the bugs that I've just taken out of the freezer. They have frozen absolutely solid now. So what we can do is we can just scatter these guys on. Spread them out a little bit. Obviously, usually I'd be doing a larger number than this. This is really quite a small batch. This is just kind of like for demonstration purposes. But even so, you don't want to sort of pile them up high. You want to keep sort of no more than one or two on top of the other, just because the whole point of this is that you want them to lose moisture. There is no point piling them up, because it's just going to trap moisture on the lower ones, and the whole process is going to take longer. So it's much better to do smaller batches with them nicely spaced out, rather than a big sort of mound and get more of them done in one go. And then once we're happy that they're all as evenly spaced out as they're going to get, we need to go into the oven. And you're looking at it taking around an hour at around 200 degrees. That should dry them out completely. Obviously, if you've got slightly higher numbers, increase the amount of time by just a little bit. Sort of, you shouldn't be looking at them taking any more than an hour and a half, though. If it's taking more than that, you're putting too many in at one time. You're risking them essentially cooking in their own juices on the bottom layer, and you want to keep the numbers of them quite low. But yeah, so 1 hour, 200 degrees, and then we'll have another look at them and see how they're getting on. And here we are, about an hour later. Well, it's been just under an hour, actually. It's been about 50 minutes. I've taken them out of the oven. As you can see, they are nice and crispy. They're all done now. You know that they're done when they start to smell done. I know that might sound a bit weird, but they have a really sort of distinct, mild pork scratching, slightly nutty type smell. If you don't know what pork scratchings are, feel free to go and Google them. They're probably the least healthy food in the world. But yeah, you'll know when they're done. As you say, the first time you dry them out, the smell is quite unlike anything else. It's not unpleasant. It's just nutty, meaty, musky bugginess is the best way that I can explain it. But as I say, when you do it for yourself, you'll find out exactly what they smell like. But now that these ones are all dried out, they should be ready to go. I just need to get them stored up. So as you can see, they haven't actually storage. I mean, if you wanted to check that they are definitely done, what you can do is it's best just to take one of them, you can break it in half, and just have a look inside and see that there's no moisture in there at all. Hopefully you can see that this one is completely dried out. It's hollow now, all of it's sort of moved to the skin. And as long as one is dry on the inside, then the rest will. It's not like they've got anything like a size difference. But yeah, if you can just sort of snap them and then have a look. As long as they look dry, then they are ready to go. Now, I store my dried mealworms in one of these plastic tubs. It's airtight, watertight, moisture repelling, but at the same time just one of the cheap ones that I've bought from in a supermarket. They're easy to get hold of. And so long as it's of a reasonable size, I mean, I rarely manage to fill this one up. It's normally about half full. It's a bit empty at the moment. But as long as it's suitable for you to work with, then it'll be fine. They don't need to be stored in anything special. They don't need to be kept in the dark or kept at a certain temperature. They're fine at room temperature. Anything like that. So we'll just add in the ones that we cooked up earlier. And we'll just stick those guys as well. Any stragglers?